What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for another episode of our Rivals and Adversaries F-86 Sabre by Academy. Today we're going to just jump right back in where we left off from the last episode. We're going to continue working on the fuselage. Now, as you can see here, we've got the fuselage together. We went ahead and sanded everything down, took a little bit of black paint and sprayed it along some of the seam lines just to check them out. They look beautiful, so I'm not really worried about that. Today we have to start off here with the rear decking. I want to add in more details, paint up some extra parts and pieces, as well as work on the front gun sight, get that installed, and we should be good to go for our next stage. The wings look good as well, so a little bit of detail work on that, and then of course we have our canopy ready to go and some of our details here that are all painted up and ready to be glued in. So far we're looking pretty decent. So I think the first thing we're going to do, we're going to come in and start working on that rear decking. We're going to add in some more wires. We're going to add in a little bit more color here and there, paint up some areas. Going to go ahead and overcoat that with a nice gold gray, which is the cockpit color as well. Then we're going to move on from there, do a little bit of dry brushing and just have some fun. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. We got a lot of work to do. Let's get moving. Alright, we are back and I have so far done quite a bit of work there on the rear decking. We added in some more wires, we painted up different parts and pieces here and there, and I think that looks pretty good. We also did a little bit of dry brushing and some detail painting there on the gun sight, got that installed, so we're looking good on that. Though we have one little issue we should probably talk about, and that is the rear detail there on the canopy. Not the cockpit detail, but the canopy detail. Now, the kit part actually would have been probably fine. For some odd reason, I decided to try to replace it with our photo etch, thinking it would be better. And in reality, it's not. So I do not like how this fits. I don't like how it goes together. It just doesn't look right, and it just doesn't drop in where it needs to go. What we're going to do, though, is instead I'm going to take the photo etch part that we made, and I'm going to kind of trim it up, cut it down, and file it away so that I can use the detail parts of that and make my own custom structure. Just go ahead and glue it to the undersurface of the canopy. Then we can add in some wire, do some detail painting, and hopefully it'll look just fine. Really, honestly, I should have stuck with the plastic parts, but I thought we have all this photo etch, let's try to use as much as we can of it, and that was a mistake because I don't think you're really gaining all that much detail. Now that I've got that mostly set up, we went ahead and earlier we traced the outline of that rear decking area. And we're going to go ahead and glue down our photo etch to this piece of styrene that I cut out from one of my styrene scraps. I think that'll work well. It's not going to be perfect, but I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of it because that back portion of the canopy is actually painted. So I think you'll miss a lot of these little imperfections. So now we're just going to glue that down, and after it is all nicely glued, we'll take a little bit of our CA accelerator, make sure that our glue is nice and hardened. Then we should be able to test it, which I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, it drops right into place. So let's go ahead and test that, see how it goes. And you know what? I mean, it's good enough. It's not perfect. It just doesn't fit as well as the plastic part would have. So, oh well. It is what it is. So now let's go ahead and jump back into our time lapse, guys. Now that this is kind of set up, I want to go ahead and paint it up with some paints. I want to start working on getting the wings attached, do some seam filling because I know we're going to have some gaps, get the drop tanks all nicely finished up with some PE parts, and then we're going to jump onto some priming and see how that goes. Let's keep it going, guys. We are getting there. I have to tell you, I am loving the Mr. Surfacer primer, all mixed up with Mr. Leveling Thinner. It gives you such a nice priming coat. It really does. But I want to go ahead and make sure this is as absolutely smooth as possible. So I've come back and I'm now wet sanding the majority of the model, just making sure the primer coat is nice and smooth. Once this is all done here, we can then come back and we can eventually overcoat it with our black primer, which is going to be a super glossy black finish. So we can come back next episode and start applying our metal colors. So a lot of work here, but you know what? I think it's worth it in the end. We'll also go ahead and wet sand any of the parts and pieces like the rear tail, all of the landing gear bay covers, the air brakes, anything that we've airbrushed with our primer. We're going to come back and sand super smooth with our sandpaper and a little bit of water. Again, this is a Mr. Surfacer primer, so it is lacquer based. Water shouldn't affect it at all, so that is excellent. We can go ahead and sand down and just smooth everything out, and it's 7,000 grit sandpaper, so it's not really going to be that harsh on the finish. Once I'm done with that, we're going to come in, we're going to start doing a little bit of work on the wheels. Now, I'm not going to be painting the wheels today, but I do want to go ahead and prime the center portions of the hubs. Those are actually going to be silver as well as the rest of the aircraft. So I want to go ahead and get both of those nicely glued together, and next episode, go ahead and finish off sanding down the treads, and then we'll go ahead and paint it with that metal color as well. Then once I have both of these done, we're going to take a toothpick. We're just going to cut off the very tips of it so that we can go ahead and friction fit the wheels onto the toothpick to kind of act as a handhold or as an axle, so to speak. So we'll go ahead and get that kind of friction fit in there, and we can have something to hold on to when we come in and we start airbrushing the different areas like the hubs and then eventually the wheels themselves. Also, for any other piece and part that I need to go ahead and clean up, I'm going to try to do as much cleanup now, take off any of the excess plastic, any burrs or any sort of sink marks I find. I'm going to go ahead and sand them down now so that I can get that all squared away. Keep in mind too, once you prime an aircraft, or any model for that matter, you can start to see any imperfections and any seam line issues, and you can come back and you can fix those before you get to your final colors. Because once you get that final paint on there, especially with natural metal, it's going to be very difficult to come back and fix any errors or any mistakes. So try to do as much prep work as you can. It'll make your life a lot easier in the future. Now, same thing with the fuselage. If you happen to see any imperfections now, try to take care of them as soon as you find them, because you do not want to go ahead and get your black primer all nicely applied and then realize, oh man, I've got all these issues I have to fix. Try to fix it beforehand. I did run across a little bit of a step right here on the back tail. I'm going to go ahead and use some CA glue and some accelerator, and we're going to go ahead and just make sure that that isn't a thing. Drop a little bit right in the middle of this tiny little fin that should self-level out, and then we can go ahead and hit it with some accelerator to make sure that it's going to be nice and firm, and we can come back later and we can sand it. Again, I'm going to do most of my prep work now, so I don't have to fool with it later. I want to get this finish looking beautiful, at least as good as I can, seeing as I don't really do natural metal. So a little bit of a shot of our accelerator, and we are good to go ahead and start doing some sanding once this is fully cured. So a couple of swipes of our jeweler file, and I think we'll be ready to go ahead and overcoat this with primer. Now I could come back and hit it with some Mr. Surfacer again, but I don't really feel like I need to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to leave it, and we'll hit it with the black primer when I actually get to that step. Couple of swipes, sand everything down, smooth it out, and we are looking beautiful. One thing I do want to go ahead and do now is I need to install the wing fences right here on the very leading edges here for the Sabre. Now the F-86E had leading edge slats. The F-86F had these little wing fences, and I think they had a fixed leading edge and probably more fuel tanks or whatnot there in the front leading edges. So we're just going to go ahead and glue in these wing fences. Pretty sure they're the exact same color as the wing. They're going to be that natural metal color. So I don't think they're going to really hurt in any sort of way. I don't think I need to worry about masking them off or masking around them. I think they're going to be just fine to go ahead and glue them down now. Plus that ensures that my finish eventually will be nice and even, and I can go ahead and apply my metal colors, and I think it should be good. After I get the other side done, we're going to jump into our primer, and I'm going to go ahead and use All-Clad. So I'm going to go with my All-Clad gloss black primer, and I'm going to overcoat the entire aircraft with that. Now it usually takes a couple of coats to get that really nice glossy finish. One doesn't really do it for you. I usually find that like 2 coats really gets a nice shiny finish. So that's what we're going to go for. This is going to be awesome, guys. I'm really excited to see how this goes. So let's go ahead and jump into that real quick last time lapse, and we'll prime the entire aircraft in All-Clad gloss black, and we'll see how it looks. Fingers crossed this goes on well. All right, everybody, we are back and check out our Sabre. We have 2 coats of our all-clad gloss black primer, and I think it looks pretty cool. It's very shiny. The finish is absolutely smooth, so that I'm really happy about. We'll next episode more than likely be ready to go ahead and start applying our metal colors, and so that's going to be kind of fun. I've got a bunch of different ones, like for example here I've got all clad duraluminum. That might be a nice kind of base coat to go ahead and put on that. What I wanted to make sure is that we didn't have any seam lines or panel lines showing through, and I think we've achieved a pretty nice smooth finish. So I'm actually very pleased to say that we are ready for that all clad paint. I'm no expert with all clad, but we are learning, and I think so far we're on the right track. But that goes ahead and wraps it up for today, guys. Next episode, we'll be back and we're going to start applying some of our all-clad colors. Like I said, we've got a couple of different versions we can do. We've got duraluminum, we've got aircraft frame aluminum, speed silver, jet exhaust, a bunch of different colors. We can try to mix and match and come up with a really cool pattern of colors and panels. I have no idea what I'm doing, but you know what? I'm having fun doing it. So until our next episode, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. Make sure to drop on by Joe's channel, give him some encouragement, because that MiG-15 is not a fun kit for him. It's really giving him some trouble. So drop a subscription, drop a comment, and give him some encouragement. We will see you back here on episode number 8 for the Rivals and Adversaries F-86 Sabre by Academy. Thanks so much for watching, guys. You take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.